Hi, thanks for joining Pro Chef to Home Chef. I am the Pro Chef to Home Chef, Jason. Welcome to my home, welcome to my kitchen, and welcome to our experiment where we will discuss all things food in regards to real life situations for real life people and how can we get restaurant quality Pro Chef meals on the table that taste amazing, are 100% Instagram worthy, and will blow the minds of your friends and family. So after 2 decades of professional cooking, everything from fine dining to oyster bars and literally everything in between, I've seen and heard a lot. Some of these things I want to show you today. But before we get into that, let's talk about the hows and whys of why we're here and what we're going to do. So things we consider when we're making meal plans. Time. Everybody works, everybody commutes. Say your son's got baseball game, maybe your daughter has cheerleading practice. The bottom line is, what can we do that's going to save us time? Because not everybody's got 2 or 3 hours they can spend in the kitchen every single day. Number 2, budget. We all have one, right? Inflation is a real thing, putting a crunch on our finances. We're seeing higher prices on everything, especially food. How do we stretch our dollar that much more? How can we cross-utilize everything that we've purchased and get that much more out of it? So number 3, space and equipment. How big is your workspace? How much counter space do you have to work with? What's the refrigerator like? All we really need is a couple of pots and pans, a good knife, and a handful of kitchen gadgets, and we can knock out incredible meals. Convenience, this is a big one. Can we get a few prepackaged, pre-made items from the grocery store shelves? Can we mix them with some fresh ingredients? What's going to save us time, space, and money? Convenience, right? Taste, the biggest one yet. If we're not putting stuff on the table that tastes great, people aren't eating it, and we failed our experiment. All right, so what's on the menu today? Coming from Texas, where tacos are king, and since today's Tuesday, why not Taco Tuesday? We're going to do 2 different sauces, a green sauce and a red sauce. We're going to do a little Tex-Mex style rice and beans. We'll have 3 different types of meats. And then at that point, we can round it out with all different kinds of stuff, lettuce, cheese, tomatoes, sour cream, whatever you like, just to finish the spread. Well, what do we got today? We're going to start with some ground beef. This is a 93.7 blend. It's very traditional in what most people think of when they think of tacos. We also got some skirt steak. This is an outside skirt steak. We're going to hit this with a little bit of marination from a combination of some of the other ingredients that you see out here. It's called carne a la plancha. We're going to sear it off nice and hard in a pan, and then it's going to have this nice, beautiful crust over it. We'll slice it up, and this will be our steak taco. Coming over here to the chicken, this is one of our convenience items. This is a rotisserie chicken that we got from the local grocery store. They are plump, they are juicy. They're about $5 to $6 a piece. For this application, you cannot go wrong. We're gonna pull it. We're gonna mix it with a few spices and some cilantro. It's gonna be amazing when it's all said and done. Now, going to the salsas. This is a tomatillo. It's basically a distant cousin of a tomato. It does have this papery husk on it that we'll want to remove before we start. But we're going to mix it, again, with a little bit of citrus. We're also going to add a little avocado to it at the end, which is going to smooth it out, make it nice and creamy. Beautiful. Our red sauce, combination of a couple of pre-made or prefab ingredients again. We got some fire roasted tomatoes and some crushed tomatoes. Can of diced chilies that's been roasted. The combination of those 2 and some more citrus, best red sauce you've ever had. Long grain rice, we'll mix it with another pre-made seasoning packet. It's culantro con achiote. The achiote is going to give it this nice orange hue, very indicative of Mexican Tex-Mex cuisine. You'll love it. From here, we just go on with what we have. Crispy taco shells. Everybody loves crispy taco shells. We'll toast off some flat corn tortillas. We have flour tortillas for those that want a soft taco or a burrito. And we also have tostado shells, which is essentially just a corn tortilla that's been fried flat. We'll put some black beans on top of it, a little feta cheese. It'll be delicious. And you cannot have a Tex-Mex spread without chips and salsa. So we got the bag of chips, we got the 2 sauces. It's gonna be amazing. All right, let's start with the rice. I've got 2 cups pre-measured rice. Typically with rice, you're gonna do a 2-to-1 ratio. So that'll be 1 part rice to 2 parts liquid. So for 2 cups of rice, we've got the 4 cups of broth. We're going to use our salsa Goya Sazon con culantro y achiote as the seasoning spice. We're going to dice up about half this onion. We'll briefly saute it, add our liquid ingredients, our seasonings, let that sit for 20-25 minutes, and you'll have Spanish rice. All right, so first thing, we'll want to get our pan about relatively hot, medium high, give or take. And while this is heating up, I'll go ahead and cut the onion. So what we'll do, we're going to top and tail this. Basically, we're taking both ends off the onion. We're going to split it in half, and then we're going to peel the outside layer. Now, this isn't necessarily disposable trash right here. We could save this in case you wanted to make a stock. Vegetable scraps are very good for stock. We can even talk a little bit more once we start to pull our chicken, what we can do with those bones. So when you're dicing an onion, you cut it in half. You go down the onion, even strokes, and then you turn it and you come crosswise, and then you're going to get a nice little dice. If you want a bigger dice, you just make sure your slices are bigger. If you want a finer dice, you just put them a little bit closer together. With this end right here, we'll just chop this up nice and small, and this is going to be part of the rice component. So we'll fill the pan. It seems a bit hot. We're good to go. We'll do a couple of swirls of olive oil. And then we're going to briefly saute this rice. The purpose of that is to get a little toastiness to it. So we've got our 2 cups of rice. In that goes. We got our spoon. Now you're not cooking this until it's brown. We're just going to swirl it around, maybe a minute or 2. We're going to make sure all the oil coats all over the rice. We'll let it sit for a minute so it can get a little bit of toastiness to it. But other than that, that's about as far as we're going to go with the rice. Maybe another little minute or 2 on this, just to get a little bit more toastiness. And then we'll add our broth and the rest of the seasonings. Okay, so we've cooked this rice for a minute or 2. You can see how it's starting to turn opaque. That's a good sign. That's pretty much what we're looking for. Like I said, we just want to put a brief little toast to it. We don't want it to change colors or anything like that, but we do just want to cook it just a touch. So at this point, we're going to add our onions. Try not to make a mess of it while we're doing it. And we're briefly going to saute this as well. We just want to start bringing the aromatics out. We want to be able to smell the onions cooking, hear the sizzle. Literally briefly, 30-45 seconds, just to start breaking down the onion a tad. And then from there, we'll add our liquid. Okay, now, I know this is 4 cups, right? We talked about 2-to-1 ratio. I had 2 cups of rice. I've got 4 cups of broth. We're going to go ahead and add the 4 cups. We're going to add our Goya. For me, the ratio that I like to do, if I'm doing 1 cup of rice, I'll do 1 packet of seasoning. We got 2 cups. I'm going to do 2 packets. And then look how it's already turning just a gorgeous, beautiful orange hue. Again, that's that achiote. We'll do a couple of turns of salt. couple of turns of pepper. Give it a stir to make sure everything's incorporated nicely. Put the lid on it. We're going to let that come up to a boil. As soon as it boils, we're essentially just going to turn the heat off to nice and low and let it simmer for 15-20 minutes. Now that we got the rice going, our next step is to work on the salsas. We're going to need a couple of the salsas. The green sauce in particular will be part of the marination for the skirt steak. So before we get to that though, onion scraps, vegetable scraps, the chicken bones from the chicken when we go to pull it. All of that stuff is still useful items. If you choose to, you can throw all the scraps from today along with the chicken bones in a pot with some water, let it boil for an hour or two, and you got you a nice little bone broth that you can use the next time, and you won't necessarily have to use the pre-made bone broth. So for the salsa, we'll just go ahead and dice up the rest of this onion. We'll use a little bit for both. We'll also use a little bit of this onion for our black beans, our Tex-Mex beans. And for this, I'm going to dice it a little bit more fine so it's not so difficult to puree once we get to puree the black beans for our Tex-Mex spread. You always want to be careful when you're using a knife too. I can't tell you enough how important a sharp knife is. It's your best friend in the kitchen. If you've got a dull knife, you'll probably wind up cutting yourself. If you've got a sharp knife, it will slice through whatever you're cooking with much more ease. You won't have to put a lot of pressure down. Again, a sharp knife in the kitchen is your best friend. All right, salsa verde time. Remember the tomatillos with the little papery husk to it? We're gonna peel the husk off. I've already done a few already, but you wanna make sure that you get this off. It's not edible at all. It is a byproduct. You will not be able to utilize that anywhere else. But I've got my tomatillos right here. You will feel a little stickiness to it, so you wanna give it a good wash. Get that stickiness off of it. It is a natural aspect of the fruit, but once it comes clean, they're good to go. So we're going to take some and we're going to cut them in quarters, really depending on the size of your blender. If you've got a big food processor, a Magic Bullet, or just your typical standard home blender, you're going to want to cut the tomatillas to the size that it will blend effectively. We're using about a pound of tomatillos to roughly about a quarter of an onion that we've already pre-diced, a can of roasted green chilies that we talked about earlier in the show. We're gonna add a little bit of lime, some cilantro, and then before we add all the finishing ingredients to it, we're going to take some and put it aside because that's going to be the base of our marinade for the skirt steak. All right, so we've got our tomatillos cut. We're going to lift off the lid to the blender. We're going to add these to it. And at this point, you just want to give it just a quick pulse to break it down before we add any of the other ingredients to it. All right, that's good. It really doesn't take a long time, 30 seconds or so. We've pulsed our tomatillos a little bit. At this point, we're going to add our roasted green chilies. And we're going to add about half of this onion right here. We don't need a lot, just a little bit. We're going to take a handful of cilantro. The thing about cooking is there's a few things that have to be precise. but there's a lot of things that don't. So we're going to add a little bit of cilantro, a couple of turns of salt and pepper. We're going to add the juice of a lime. You always want to make sure that you roll it. This is going to break up the fibers on the inside. It just allows it to juice a little bit easier. So we're going to add that juice of the whole fresh lime. Put this up to the side. Now for the heat. This is our jalapenos. We're going to add, this is one of those things. You can add as little or as many as you want. For me, I kind of like a spice. So I'm going to add a few. And then I'm just going to, a touch of the juice. I'll spill it all over. At this point, another quick couple of pulses. Now, this is going to be the base of our marinade for the carne a la plancha. So we're just going to take a little bit of that. The rest, we're going to save, and we're going to add an avocado to. And it's going to round out the flavor of this salsa verde. Of course, we'll taste it. Quick, easy way to get the pit out of the avocado. Hit it with your knife. The seed comes right out. So at this point, on its own, would make a nice fresh green salsa. For me personally, I like to add a little avocado to it. We've pitted it. Good way to scoop it all out is to just use a spoon and just follow the inside of the peel. We're going to do the full avocado. In that goes. Put the lid back on it. Another little pulse. And you see how the color changed a little bit? It's got a nice little creaminess to it. It's going to be spectacular. I'm going to take the lid off. We're going to give it a little taste. And adjust the seasonings if we need to. Look how creamy it is though. It's beautiful. At this point, I like it. I'm going to add just a little bit more salt. And a little bit more pepper. We'll give it one more blitz just to incorporate all that. And we're good to go. So, sauce one. I don't even know what and we have a nice Tex-Mex style creamy tomatillo and avocado salsa. So we have a nice, beautiful, smooth, creamy salsa verde, if you will. We've taken tomatillos, onions, jalapenos, a little bit of cilantro. We added an avocado to it just at the end, and this was going to be the perfect condiment for any one of our tacos that we're going to have. It's great with chips. Make sure you got an extra bag because this stuff's going to go like crazy. So now we've got our skirt steak, which is going to be our carne a la plancha. This stuff can be a little fatty, so we definitely want to trim off a little bit of the fat. See, all of this stuff right here, some of it will peel off, some of it we're going to have to actually cut. But for all intents and purposes, you want to get a little bit of this stuff off, as much as you can actually. Because this will be tough. It's not very appetizing. While you're doing this, work in small increments. You don't want to cut your finger off. And again, a sharp knife is definitely the way to go. Make sure, you can keep your hand out of the way. Follow the fat line as you're cutting it off. Move the meat if you need to. come from it to the other side if you need to. The most important thing is safety. You definitely don't want to get your finger caught in between the knife. Something like this, you can go under and just come off like this. And we're pretty much where we need to be. Let's get this one last piece off over here. And turn it back around as to not cut ourselves. All right, so got a nice beautiful piece of skirt steak. We've got our salsa verde base. From here, we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil to it. I'm gonna rinse my hands off real quick. We come over here, now we got our citrus fruits. We have some orange, some lemon, and some lime. Basically, we'll take the juice of each. We'll add it to our marinade. You know, the seeds at this point won't really matter because we're not going to be cooking the seeds. The seeds won't inhibit our process right here any. So we've got our lime, we've got our orange, come in with a little bit of lime. Sometimes these smaller limes don't have a whole lot of juice to give up, but that's plenty. We'll do a couple of turns of salt and pepper because we're always wanting to season every step of the way. We'll give it a quick stir. Just incorporate everything. And this is our marinade. We'll put that in face down. We'll scoop a little bit over the top. And we'll just let that sit for a bit before we actually start to cook it. Let's talk marination, all right? So typically with marination, you want to, the longer the better, depending on the cut of meat that you're using. For our application here with the skirt steak, you're gonna want at least a half hour, more if possible. If you're in a position where you can do a little prep the day before with the sauces, that would be great because you could actually marinate that skirt overnight. If not, no big deal. 30 minutes, good to go. We've got the rice working. We've made our salsa verde. We have our skirt steak marinating. So let's work on the beans now. We'll get our pan again, medium heat. A couple of turns of olive oil. And then again, we're still working on that one onion. We're going to take about a quarter of this onion. We're going to add it to the pan. And we're going to let those sweat a little bit. Sweating, just briefly cooking it. We're letting some of the aromatics come out. We're letting some of the juices start to expel. It's not super important that we cook this over high heat because we're going to deglaze with our Mexican style lager. And we're going to let that reduce until it's almost by about half, until it's nice and almost a thick consistency before we add our beans to it. Once those beans simmer for a little while, then we will absolutely puree it up, and we're going to have a nice refried black bean to go with our Mexican spread. Yeah. So we're waiting on our onions to cook. We've got our heat. We're waiting on our electric stove. Let's check the rice. The rice has been simmering for about 20-25 minutes on low heat, if any. We'll give it a little fluff with the fork. And look how beautiful that rice came out. If you've gone to a Tex-Mex restaurant before, I guarantee you this is what the Spanish rice is looking like. And this is just a base version of it. If you've got like some corn you'd like to get rid of, that you could probably grill off and then add to it later, that would be absolutely fine and perfect. But at this point, for me, that rice is perfect. Our onions are working. They're about where we want them to be. So we'll take our Mexican style lager. We're gonna add a little bit, maybe about a quarter of the bottle, half of the bottle. Give it a good stir. And we're just gonna let that slowly reduce for a little while until it gets to about half. Adjust the heat a little bit. We'll just let that go for now. So the beauty about cooking with beer is whatever's left is for the chef. All right, so now we're at a point where the lager has reduced roughly by about half, so it's definitely time to add our black beans. What I've done, I've drained the liquid off of one can completely. And the other can, I've taken about half of the liquid out because we're still gonna need a little bit of the liquid to help with the processing of it and the pureeing of it. So we've got the beans in there. We'll give it a stir, incorporate everything nice and good. Again, we're gonna do a couple of turns of pepper and salt. Give it a good stir. We're gonna turn it down to about a medium simmer. On your stove, probably about a 3 or a 4. We're gonna put the lid on it, and we're just gonna let it go for 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, salsa roja, a Tex-Mex staple. Very, very simple to make. We're using some of our convenience items, right? We've got our fire roasted tomatoes, which is going to add a little smokiness to the dish. We have crushed tomatoes, our roasted green chilies, the jalapenos, cilantro, salt and pepper, a little bit of lime juice, and that's it. So to the blender, we add our fire roasted tomatoes. I like to put the chunky stuff in first because the crushed tomatoes is already processed. So when you put the chunky stuff in first, it gives the blade a bit of a chance to do some processing before you incorporate too much air. Again, jalapenos, it's one of those things. How spicy do you want it? I kind of like a little spice. So just like with the salsa verde, we're going to add a few jalapenos. We're going to hit it with a little bit of the juice. And that's it. Nice little handful of cilantro. Just pinch it right off the top. Maybe a little more for good measure. A couple turns of salt. A couple turns of pepper because we're seasoning every step of the way, right? You got to build those flavors. We're going to add our crushed tomatoes. And a little bit of the lime juice. And then we'll give it a quick pulse once or twice just to incorporate it all. Now, when it's all pulsed up and ready to go, you can absolutely add some fresh diced tomato or some fresh onion to give it a more chunkier consistency. But I like mine a little smooth like this, and it works best for me. And that's literally it. We'll give it another taste because we're always tasting, right? A little more salt. One more pulse. And that is salsa roja. Just like your favorite Tex-Mex restaurant. Hope you got extra chips. So when it comes to salsas, there's a couple of schools of thought. You can absolutely add some diced tomatoes and a little diced onion, maybe some chopped fresh jalapenos. It's going to give it that rustic, chunky aspect to it. For me, I prefer it a little smoother, somewhat chunky, but it's absolutely 100% okay to add any of those fresh ingredients that you'd like to, just to give it a more rustic feel. Now the chicken, another one of our convenience items, right? We're going to take this chicken and we're just going to pull it. The skin is not really conducive for our application right here. So we're just going to pull this off as best we can, put it off to the side. The breast meat, right? The breast meat is what everyone likes and everyone loves. It's really super simple to pull off. There's really no better way to do it than just get in there with your hands. Try and follow the bone. You'll feel the breastbone. Don't forget the tender. And once we get it all pulled, we're gonna shred it. So it doesn't really need to be that pretty. So you're not really too concerned. Once you get it off at this point, you're literally just gonna start pulling it a little bit, right? You can go as coarse or as fine as you like. Medium-sized pieces like so is what works best for me, in my opinion. So we're just gonna pull it, and we're gonna do this with the whole bird. The thighs, the legs, the wings, everything. All right, so let's shift gears, go back to the beans real quick. These have simmered down nice. Most of the liquid is evaporated. So now at this point, what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna blitz it with, I call it a stick blender. These things are about 25, 30 bucks. You can get them at most of your super centers. Very inexpensive piece, but a lifesaver in the kitchen. They can do so many things for you. So we're just gonna blitz this up real quick. You can make it as chunky or as smooth as you'd like. You could absolutely skip this step if you wanted. And if you wanted to serve whole beans, you absolutely could. But for me, with the tostado shells, I like to spread the beans over the top of it before I add my cheese and stuff. This is the way I'm doing it. All right, so that's good. You could go a little bit smoother if you liked. You could absolutely put this in a food processor or a blender as well. But again, the stick blender is my friend in my kitchen, so that's what I like to utilize. We're at a nice medium consistency, and it's perfect in my book. So now it's ground beef time. There's a million different varieties of ground beef out there. You could do 80-20, you can do 90-10, you can do 93-7. You could even do ground turkey or chicken if you'd like. We're going on the little leaner side today. We're doing a 93-7. It's going to cut back on a little bit of the fat. But if you're not a big ground beef fan, you can absolutely substitute chicken or turkey. That's the beauty about tacos. Just a delicious piece of meat, whatever it may be, wrapped in a warm flour tortilla, sprinkled with any kind of condiment you can imagine. All right, so we've got our pan on medium-high heat. It's been preheating for a minute. We're good to go. We're going to add our ground beef. We're going to give it a little chop here and there. We're going to crumble it up a little bit, about small to medium-sized pieces. And you're going to want this to cook a little bit, probably about 3/4 of the way before you actually add our taco seasoning. Now, remember, to save a little bit of space in our cabinets, we've got the pre-made taco seasoning. This is really good stuff. It's got all the traditional flavors that you'd expect for a Tex-Mex style taco, but it keeps you from having 20 different spices in your cupboard. So we've been cooking our ground beef a little bit. We want to go about 3/4 of the way before we add our taco seasoning. Again, this is one of our convenience items. Basically, this is going to save you space and money because you're not going to have to buy 20 different ingredients to put in your cupboard. It has all the traditional spices that you'll see in Tex-Mex cuisine. It actually tastes pretty good, and this is the way to go in my opinion. So our beef now is about 3/4 of the way. So we're going to add our taco seasoning. Make sure you get every little bit out. Just give it a good stir. As you can see, it's slowly, right before your eyes, turning into taco meat. Once this is all nice and incorporated, it'll be ready to go to the table. So the last thing on our list is our skirt steak. It's been marinating for about 30 minutes. It is a temperature sensitive item in my opinion. Medium rare to medium is about where you want to be for the best results. You absolutely can cook it a little bit further. Just keep in mind, the further you go, medium well done, the tougher it gets. The best way to eat beef, medium rare, by far. All right, so medium high heat. Our pan has been preheating for a minute or two. It's kind of important you get it hot so we get that nice char sizzle as soon as it hits the pan. That's what you're looking for. Listen for that sound. Now, for medium rare, we're probably gonna let this go a minute, 2 minutes per side. We'll let it rest and then we'll slice it for the feast. While we're waiting for that to cook, I'm gonna do a little something else. I'm gonna take some of this extra cilantro that we had, and I'm gonna give a quick chop to it and mix it up with these onions. Remember, that's still the first onion that we use for this whole dish right here. And this is another traditional condiment that is used in Tex-Mex and Mexican cuisine. You take a little bit of onion and a little bit of cilantro, and you mix the two together, and it's absolutely amazing when you put it on your taco. So we'll give this a quick look. A little while longer. Crank it up just a bit, and we're almost there. So this has been going about a minute or two. You see that nice, beautiful char? That's exactly what we're looking for. That's going to give it that authentic, smoky, rustic flavor that we're looking for. Carne a la plancha. If we were to do this on the grill, we would call it tacos al carbone. But since we're doing it on a flat top surface, we're calling it plancha. Another minute or so, we'll pull it off the heat. We'll let it rest. It'll be good for slicing. And at that point, we're good. Just a quick recap. We've done our 3 meats. We've got our Tex-Mex beans and rice, our 2 sauces. We've pretty much cross-utilized everything that we bought. We're going to turn this off the heat. We're going to let it rest. We'll heat up some tortillas. We'll assemble everything. Get it ready for our family and friends. And we're off to the races. Okay, so we're done, right? Let's recap. We've got a Tex-Mex spread to die for, literally. We have our ground beef tacos, traditional tacos, our steak a la plancha. This was one of our convenience items that we purchased from the store. We pulled chicken. Our 2 salsas, salsa verde, nice and creamy, salsa roja, a little bit of spice. Our refried black beans, our Spanish rice, and all the fixings that you can imagine. Now, this is enough food for a family of 4 for at least 2 days, if not 3. We saved time, we saved money, we saved space, and we've got food for 2 days for your entire family. I am going to make me a taco And for me, it is the flour tortilla and the steak a la plancha. A couple of pieces of this. A little bit of rice and beans. And some salsa to top it all off. Both, if you don't mind. And then finish it off with a little cerveza, because that's chef's privilege right there. So good. I can't wait for you to try it. All right, guys, here it is. Like I said, we're about $50 shy of all of this. Family of 4, gonna feed them for 2 or 3 days. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you next time.